Welcome back to the weekly manga podcast. This week we're going to talk about chapter 96 of Akane Banashi, where Akane's dad finally enters into the picture, and chapter 144 of Ijiranai de Nagatoro-chan, or Don't Bully Me, Miss Nagatoro, where we got to the big moment of the whole series. And we're going to talk about some big news, some big arrests recently made in Japan, what it means for us Western readers. Stick around for all that manga news and more coming right up. Thank you for joining us here on the Weekly Manga Podcast. This is the podcast where we talk about all of your favorite ongoing Japanese manga. My name is Bruce. I am the proprietor of the White Gray Black YouTube channel. With me again this week is Gautam.
Hello, hello.
So let's kick it off with Nagatoro-san, in which we get spoilers. By the way, big spoilers. If you're not caught up on Nagatoro, if you don't read Nagatoro, or you're interested in being spoiled, this is get out now. 3, 2, 1, be gone. This is the confession chapter. We finally got here. Applause all around. And it was great. I liked it a lot. Gautam, what did you think about the confession chapter?
I didn't get to it. So
We'll
spoil it for me. I'm like I think 15 chapters behind on Nagatoro. So
okay, you have the easily, I think, the best arc in Nagatoro to look forward to. I've really enjoyed the past 6 or 9 months of Nagatoro leading up to this confession, and it's been really good.
Yeah, Nagatoro is just like constantly quality, I think. What a good rom-com.
Yeah, really great. And to be noted, for the pacing of it, this is around the same time that we got a confession in something like Kaguya-sama, which I would say probably is my previous favorite ongoing romance manga. That I think we got a confession. It was like in 124 or 120, something like that. So this is chapter 144, so around the same time. All that to be said that, that's about 3 full years, I would guess. Maybe almost 4. Yeah, probably like a slightly shy of 4 years full syndication for this, but it's great. There's sort of the wrestling competition, or the judo competition, I guess, that Nagatoro was going through. The painting competition happened with the MC, whose name I forget because it's not really important.
It's Paisen, which is senpai.
Which is senpai.
Reversed.
Yeah, he has... actually, wait, he has said his name, I think.
I don't know if they've said it more than once or twice. They always call him Paisen, which is just like a cheeky way of saying
I think that
senpai.
they address him by name in the other art students in the sort of the arc that he just went through, but
got it. I guess I just never took note.
I don't
okay, got it.
Maybe his name is in here somewhere. I don't know. But
it's funny but it's not a funny thing that like one of the best running rom-coms, we don't know
I have no idea what
name.
Main character. Yeah. And to be fair, he is a good character.
He's a good character.
He's just not called by his name for the first 100 chapters or something. So it is definitely funny. But it's kind of a nice, straightforward. Both the Nagatoro and Paisen have sort of had their arcs of. We said that we'd have this big secret reveal thing if we win our competitions. Paisen gets second in his. Nagatoro wins hers. So they just kind of walk off to the beach and have a conversation and just kind of lays it out. It's like a mostly talking chapter, which it's a confession, obviously. But it didn't feel, it doesn't feel like he's saying all these things and like telling you things we didn't already know. He like kind of lays out his own character journey, right? He's like, I wondered why such a cheerful girl like you, Nagatoro, would be interested in a guy like me. Like after I started being with you, I wanted to change myself. He literally just goes it says let me explain my character arc to you. At the start, I was like this, and then you showed up, and then I changed, and then I wanted to change myself, which is kind of the big thing. Some really good art. I
love the eyes.
Yeah, and Nanashi does a really good job with the sort of romance large eyes, I guess, and Nagatoro has a couple of really good spreads in here. But yeah, this is just the confession going through here. So, and she asks, she's like, she's like, even now, like he says like, my life has started to shine, and she's like even now, yes, and she's embarrassed, which is a fun Nagatoro thing to see. But she never gives it up entirely, right? She's like nearly crying. She's like, senpai, even for you, that was extremely gross. And this is kind of the thing that I guess separates Nagatoro-san from other romances is Nagatoro herself and how kind of different she is in being a bully or
well, she's like the she's like the modern tsundere archetype. Yeah, she's the modern version of the tsundere, which is like a tough archetype to do nowadays because it was like really popular back then. Tsundere being like the girl who acts cold or aggressive or whatever, but
yeah, it's like cold love, I think, is a translation or something, right? Dare,
secretly like super love. Sweet and into you. It's like not a popular archetype because all of those girls that portray that archetype back in the day come off as like abusive and weird now, right?
A little bit, yeah. I mean,
like they hit the main character or like they get a compliment and they like punch him in the face. You know, it's like a gag back in the day.
Yeah,
and,
I mean
and even like
the idea behind the tsundere is like the guy compliments her and she says like, ugh, you're so stupid, and kind of denies and pushes it away, but then deep down she's into him, right? Like that's kind of the two sides of like, you like, don't come on to me, I don't like you, but deep down she does like him.
I think that the point I was trying to make is more so that it's not a popular archetype because I don't think it's aged well into the modern day, but I think Nagatoro does it really well because at the beginning she displays the full tsundere archetype where it feels like bullying, right? But you kind of peel that layer back if you give this series a chance. And it's the same for any tsundere, right? Like you have to give a charitable read at the beginning.
I disagree with this not being a popular archetype. I think this has consistently stayed one of, if not the top, like,
you think
female
so?
Anime girl.
Tsundere?
I mean, Asuka from Evangelion is the sort
that's
of
from the 80s,
prototypical the 90s, but I mean she was the original one.
I'm talking about the modern day, you know.
I'm trying to think who are like the modern day. I don't watch anime or read like.
What I'm saying, I'm not saying it wasn't
Kaguya's a tsundere for a little bit, right? Like in Kaguya-sama, I would say.
I'm saying it's a less popular archetype than it was. Like back in the day, it was very popular.
Sure.
Now it's not so much.
Yeah, and early 2000s, this was like everyone was like, "Oh, tsunderes are the best."
It was like so immense. Yeah. But now I think Nagatoro is like a good modern representation of this archetype because it feels more natural than old school tsunderes even. Feels like a
well, and the fun part about her is that she isn't just like, ugh, don't come on to me, but secretly I like you. She's like loud and like, right, like she isn't just saying like, oh my gosh, senpai, you're being gross. She's like yelling and being big and emotional. She's a big character when she's sort of pushing back on the love, which is the fun part. But yeah, I mean, it's also a little different, the whole series specifically, because it isn't like we don't really know that these characters like actually like each other for like a good chunk of time, I guess. Like it isn't like immediately like, oh yeah, this is a romance. It's introduced and you're like, oh, it's a comedy slice of life, maybe. And like, I'm trying to think how to, I think it is kind of clear that it's a romance, but also it isn't super clear that she's a tsundere and likes him back, or that he is like really into her. There's more character stuff going on behind the scenes, I guess.
I think you'd be surprised as to how quickly they made it clear, because I actually felt the same way. And I reread some of Nagatoro, and there was this on chapter 8 or something like that. There's this chapter where her friends wanted to go on like a blind date because there was a boy her friend liked, and it's like a mixer type thing. And one of the guys was hitting on her and was like making cheeky jokes that Nagatoro would make towards senpai, right? Mm-hmm. Like similar type jokes. And she is completely uninterested. The guy's like, oh, I made this music. And she's like, I guess I don't feel like you cared about it. Like she's getting very honest, direct feedback and just not flirting at all. Yeah. And well, senpai was in the same cafe and he's like, whoa, she is treating him kind of coldly. And then as soon as they all like leave the cafe, they run into each other on the street and she's back to normal around senpai. Yeah. Which means she only treats him this cheekily I
Yeah,
guess.
it's been so long since I read the start of it. I mean, I guess probably 4 years now, but yeah, it's yeah. You're definitely right
It,
about all that stuff that I was trying to remember. It is probably more
it's
clear,
been a
but
while
it's
since we read this.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's there's something different about it that I can't put my finger on without going back and combing through the early pages probably, but and maybe it's just Nagatoro's personality of being like such a kind of cartoonish
Petite.
kind of fun tsundere where like when she pushes back that's the most fun part, right? Like usually the sort of draw of a tsundere is like, oh, she's saying no, but then clearly she's in love, and the clearly being in love is like the cute part, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
or like her kind of denying her true feelings is the cute part, whereas like with Nagatoro the attractive, the fun, the interesting part is like it's so funny the way that she pushes back when instead of accepting her
Yeah.
feelings, right? Like that. So that's maybe that's the draw that I'm getting at. But
You know, I think what's interesting about this and Kaguya is that you kind of know that like the like for Nagatoro for like the last 40 chapters, these two characters have practically been dating, right?
yeah,
And I think it's the onus is similar to Kaguya, where you know from the beginning they like each other. So I think the confession is kind of like just a satisfying thing for the audience, and it turns less into an event and more of just a little sweet, like a sweet little beat in the story, which I appreciate.
Yeah. Kukuya's was an event, but yeah, I mean this, but
True,
I agree definitely with Nagatoro where it's less. It's sort of like, and again, like I mentioned, like Paisen is just telling us like, if you're paying attention to things we already know, he's just kind of explaining his character arc to you, which is, I mean, if you want to talk in a real life sense, what romance is, I guess, a sort of character arc between two people. That's probably boiling it down too much, but here's the screen, right? And he just says it, and it's great. But yeah, I mean, it's a very simple kind of. They're just on the beach, and you get good reactions from Nagatoro, of course. Again with those eyes, which we mentioned.
Oh, I love that. I love her goofy face.
Yeah, and the tears and stuff. Yeah, and then Nagatoro kind of retorts back with like, I also had a character arc, thank you. And explains kind of the same thing of like, yeah, I mean, and it's like, and this is sort of the, it's been a while since we talked about romance, I think, but one of the things that for me sets apart kind of a really good, well-written like a believable interpersonal relationship between two people and just a romance where you're saying, well, these two are the main characters, they're going to end up together, is like how their character arcs intersect, interact, influence each other, and then eventually kind of meet and become a singular kind of relationship character arc. And the reason Nagatoro, I think, is a good romance is that, yeah, like both of these characters had their own development, which they sort of reached a climax or a turning point to in this previous arc. And then along with that, we now get the confession, and now we essentially get Nagatoro saying, take credit for the one who was responsible for part of my character arc. As you explained to me, I was responsible for yours, and now let's sort of have our relationship arc going next. And I think that it lines up perfectly. It makes sense. These two are great. There's none of this is forced as, oh yeah, of course they end up together because the author wants them to. I think this is very natural, very developed. Yeah, and no, they'd avoided a couple of pitfalls that I've seen past, especially shonen romances do, right? They didn't cut after one person didn't confess and then they cut the chapter. That happens a lot, more often than most people would like it to. There's this page, especially I want to call this out. There is no, did they confess? Didn't they confess? Because, relationships in Japan are a little bit different, especially for, high schoolers or whatever. Two people say they like each other and they walk off together. Does that mean they're dating, right? Whereas here in America, right, it's sort of like, will you be my girlfriend? Yes. Okay, you are my girlfriend now. Like that's it. Like the agreement is reached. We've said it directly. But the translators or the author or whoever here said, laid it out on this page. Says Nagatoro and I are finally a couple. Like period. End of story. So two big pitfalls they avoided for shonen romance of me there. They didn't cut off the confession and they didn't leave anything kind of unclear. It's all laid out. It's all in this chapter. And it's all good. So
And I like that it's not overly serious. It's all pretty goofy. Like they both have goofy smiles when they're walking away, right?
Yeah,
Like just
they
like two high schoolers.
Yeah, there's like a little bit of tears, like obviously happy tears, but there's no like this was not emotional in the way that like well, I will say they kind of both had their big emotional personal growth moments a little bit earlier, the last couple of chapters when the two competitions were going on, but here it's just happiness, like it's just happy and good, like which is a way a relationship should be, right? I think a lot of times I think you're right in calling that out because a lot of relationships in, I guess, like drama or dramatic events, right? Two people get together and it's like the reasons those will sometimes fall apart in writing or in stories is like, well, she was bawling and abused and so, there was nothing really to develop. But here it's like, no, the start of a relationship should be a joyous and happy thing and agreed on by both parties. And like, yeah, we get all that. It's all good here.
I think it's because too many romance authors treat the start of a relationship as the conclusion, right?
True.
So they consider, hey, as the reader, this is the most important moment of the story.
Yeah.
And they feel like they need to make it incredibly memorable. And I think their emotions are all tied up in making it a memorable moment too. But I think it should just be natural, right? And I think Nagatoro does it super well.
Yeah. Well, then that's a really good call out of a lot of authors treating, the confession happens and then we get to the end. And I guess that's a third sort of pet peeve in shonen romance for me specifically. I don't like that. I don't think anybody likes that. Most of the comments I see, I saw in this chapter and a lot of other series is like, you get it announced, you get the confession and then the next day it's like, as announced, there are 3 more chapters or 2 more chapters or something. But I don't think that's happening with Nagatoro. I expect Nagatoro to go on for at least a bit longer. Can't say how long. But
there's been they've been practically dating this whole time, so I think the author already knows how to write them as a couple. I think a lot of authors don't know how to make it interesting once the couple has become a couple. Not just in manga and everything. Look at Jim and Pam in The Office, right? Any of you have seen that show? Yeah.
For sure. Who is it? The boom mic guy? Like the worst.
Oh my god.
The worst part of the last season of The Office. Yeah.
Terrible arc.
But you're totally right. They have essentially like been dating for a while, and so this is not going to change too much other than sort of their title. I definitely expect a couple of chapters of explaining or maybe hiding it from like Nagatoro's brother and sister. I would assume that we kind of go up through Pison's graduation would maybe be the end of the series. Or maybe Pison in a year in college and Nagatoro's graduation. I don't know. But it doesn't seem to be, I guess the short of it is it doesn't seem to be heading for an ending just yet, which is good. And they added, this is sort of the last pages of the chapter. They added sort of a classic Nagatoro goof, judo throwing, her boyfriend.
She turns into a cat at the end.
The cat and the little, like, I don't even know, the like very undetailed kind of in the bottom left of the right page here.
Like when she turns into her octopus form.
Octopus form, I guess is what that is. Yeah.
It's funny that she changes into these different little creatures.
It's visually interesting though. I like it. I like this series.
Nagatoro is represented as a gremlin in every way. I agree. I love that. That sounds like a good chapter. I got to catch up.
Yeah, or I guess here's probably the next big point of contention between these two is that I don't remember, they like promised a kiss or something like that. And that's sort of what they're joking about at the end here is like Pison brings up like, oh, like what about the promise that you made if you won? Like you said you were going to kiss me if you won. And she's like, oh, you're so gross. You want to do it here in front of everybody on the beach. So my guess is that they kind of flirt and delay around that kiss, and maybe that's their next big thing. But yeah, I mean,
that's a good plot point. It's like a classic low stakes type
exit drama
type beat.
Yeah, exactly.
Not even drama, but just like goofy overthinking. Yeah, I like that
for sure. Yeah, so I mean that's it. It's good. I'm always happy to read Nagatoro. It's great. I'm happy for this confession. Yeah, good things.
Yeah, it's like one of the best rom-coms running. So I'm happy it's still going through.
Yeah, I mean, especially for shonen rom-coms, I think it's definitely. I can't think of anything that I would say is a better shonen rom-com.
People say You and I Are Polar Opposites is really good.
I read a little bit of that. Yeah,
I've only read like 5 chapters or so.
I guess
it was good.
How much of Marriage Toxin did you read? Because that's kind of romancy, isn't it? Or is it?
I read like 5 chapters of that.
Okay. Yeah, that's next up on my.
I think The Dangers of My Heart is also up there for me. The Dangers Within My Heart, Dangers of My Heart. I think that's what Dangers of My Heart. I think that's great, and I guess I'm just like I think if you're gonna make a rom-com, there has to be really good character development.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's the new standard, right? Like, and Dangers of My Heart is very good at that too. So, yeah, another good one.
I guess I would say, but it's not as good as Nagatoro. I really like the story of the girl with the skirt of inappropriate skirt length. The prefect of that. I like that one. It's not as good as Nagatoro though. I also like the other one that author does, which is the what is it called? It's like Destroy All Humans, They Can't Be Regenerated.
Oh, I love Destroy All Humans, They Can't Be Regenerated.
That's monthly though, so it's a little harder to keep up and talk about. Also, the last couple of chapters have been a bit kind of melodramatic, and people have taken a turn on them. I still like it, but it is definitely getting in the sort of like,
I don't know.
Our parents have to send her away and separate the couple and the end of the world. It's like, okay, well, but that is a good one though. I do like both of those.
I'll give it a shot. I think the story's been so consistent that I can't take Reddit's word on the moment to moment.
Sure. And sometimes you have to kind of introduce a dramatic turn to resolve it later, and before it's resolved, it doesn't feel good. So,
Reddit did ruin my perception of one manga though. There's this romance manga, right, where everyone's just like, I brought it up one time. It's like called like Blooming Flowers, Blooming Love.
Oh, Blooming
like
Love. Yeah.
Maybe it's something. Maybe it's a different one. It's like 50 chapters long. But it's about this like
Blooming Love. Blooming Love is the one with the woodworking drum girl. That's also really good.
Okay, not that one. It's this intimidating looking guy and this like honest schoolgirl, like who they look like they're not a good fit, but they are. It's like it's a very sweet romance.
Yeah.
And I read through the Reddit comments, and every chapter has an apology counter because the characters apologize to each other a lot. And after I noticed that, I'm like, God, they apologize to each other much.
That's like a real life thing. Like if you I speak slightly from experience here, I guess. I've been in a relationship with someone who apologized a little bit too much at one time, and that was like something we had to discuss and work through. But like, it's a problem. It's not a huge problem, but it's like, hey, you don't have to apologize for like picking a place to eat that's not like the place that I chose. Like that's okay.
Yeah,
like, don't apologize for being you. It's fine.
It's very much like, I think it's like they're even going too far for Japanese culture, but it's part of the Japanese culture.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
But after they pointed that out, I couldn't read it anymore. It was ruined for me. They apologized so much. Why did you point it out? I didn't even notice.
Is it the oh God, what is it called? That like the blooming flower blooms with you or something? Is it that one?
Yeah, it's I think we're thinking of the same thing.
The fragrant flowers bloom with dignity.
Okay, yes, that
Karuhana Warin Tosaku is the Japanese
what an
name.
Insanely terrible name. But yeah,
there's a multi-layered version in Japanese, I'm sure, that has puns or double meanings that makes it better, but yeah. I could somehow tell. I have not read that, but when you said that, I was like, I feel like that girl feels pretty apologetic, and that guy feels like, like he's a scary delinquent type, at least in the story. So I somehow knew what you were talking about.
The writing is good. It's just that they apologize a lot, and I can't deal. I can't deal with it. It's too much. Anyway, sidetrack. Let's go to the next
thing.
Cool.
Yep, that's Nagatoro. Let's talk about this past Sunday's chapter of Akane Banashi. This is chapter 96. Did you get to read this one?
Yeah, let me start on this one.
Yeah,
it was freaking great.
Amazing.
I think like every time we bring Akane, we're like, this is maybe the best chapter yet. This is a Rakugo-less chapter. Actually, most of the chapter is about two dudes who have only been in maybe a handful of chapters before talking. And that's the chapter.
I think, have we seen her dad say anything since chapter 1 that's not in a flashback? I think this is actually the first time this character is like appearing to us in the modern day, right?
Pretty much, dude.
Because he's been out of town. He mentions earlier he's been out of town. He's like a concrete salesman or something.
We see him like in a panel or two where he's just talking about his life or something,
Yeah.
or like saying a word. But like this is the first time we've actually seen him. So
Yeah.
you're right. Is basically the Akane is going to give a big performance. I'll summarize this.
Yeah.
Akane is going to give a big performance, and this dude on the left, the dude with the long hair, is basically supposed to give her a recommendation.
He's the judge.
After watching the performance, and he's one of the 4 people in the world who can recommend her for kind of a promotion, effectively.
There's 4 guys. One guy is Akane's master. He can't recommend her, I don't think. This guy, one of the other guys was one of the judges we saw at the competition, I think. And then there's this guy and one more. I don't remember.
But basically, this long-haired guy has to be the one to give the recommendation. His disciple is helping Akane with her performance.
Yeah, his disciple is this guy, the spiky-haired guy.
Yeah, Chocho for audio listeners.
Yeah.
And basically, the dad and Chocho go way back. And so does the long-haired guy. I forgot what his name is. Otherwise, I'd use his name. But basically, the long-haired guy got told by his master not to give Akane the recommendation due to like grudges within the Rakugo scene and political struggles.
The curly-haired guy is who you're talking about. He's the bad guy.
Yeah.
There have not really been any true bad guys yet, but the curly-haired guy feels like a fucking bad guy.
He seems like a scumbag.
A bad guy.
And basically, this chapter is he hasn't made it to the Rakugo show. He's already late, and he intends not to go because his master told him not to. And in Rakugo, your master's word is absolute.
Yep.
Anyway, Akane's dad stops by on the way to the show, expecting his pal, the guy who's supposed to give the rec, to be in the exact location he's in. And I love how we start out because Akane's dad starts out with, "I am alive," by the way, because everyone in this story treats him like he has died after he got expelled from Rakugo. And I love that because it really, when you're reading a story, you're kind of in the seat of the main character and how they feel. So when you're reading, Rakugo is also the most important thing in the world. Just like when you're reading Haikyuu, volleyball is the most important thing in the world, and whatever. But I think this chapter is brilliant in that he shows up, he's like, "I am alive," and as we go to the next page, he says, "Hey, don't you think me getting expelled was your fault? Don't worry about that. I don't think that's the case at all. You are wasting your sympathy and your energy here." And he says, at the end of the day, it's just Rakugo. And I think that's like perfectly encapsulated, right? Like everyone is treating this so seriously, fighting for vengeance for his expulsion, his unfair expulsion. His daughter is carrying his will, but he's not dead. So he's carrying his will.
Well, and also and this is something I saw some comments talking about that I agree with. This goes against everything we are used to in a sort of a shonen action or sports series. Like usually what happens is the sort of old, I missed my chance, but I'm, back again. What happens is that person comes back and kind of gets their chance for some kind of redemption, whether directly or by helping the main character or something. And I think it's really good, really smart, really good writing and really mature to just write that he doesn't the dad doesn't need redemption. He's moved on. And that's like what he says here at the end, right? Is like, it's just Rakugo. Like, do I have regrets? Sure. But I can't dwell on the past. It didn't ruin my life. And it shows a picture of his wife and his child. He's like, I might be going in a different direction, but I'm still moving forward. If you're feeling pity for me, it's a completely wasted gesture. And that's like the most mature thing anyone has ever done in a shonen series ever, to be like, yeah, I got kicked out. I don't need redemption. I don't need to come back and do Rakugo again. I moved on. And so don't worry about it.
And he also very clearly stated here that even back then, right? Like he didn't, with the picture of his wife and kid, he's a husband and father. Like Rakugo, even when he was doing it, wasn't the most important thing in his life. It was his wife and kids. So I'm sure, like he said, losing the Rakugo thing hurt, but it didn't ruin his life in any way. Yeah. He just moved on to something different. And I love that. I think him in at the very beginning of the series, right? In the very first opening chapter.
Right. When we see him get kicked out and stuff. Yeah.
It was like a really emotional moment. He was like he was a nervous guy. He tried his best. But I feel like he's a lot more confident in these recent chapters after getting fired, because I feel like he has gotten the perspective that he's giving out to others right now. You know, like the advice that he's not dwelling on the past, his life isn't ruined, and everyone who's trying to make it right or do right by him should be doing it for themselves and not taking this all so seriously.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think,
including his daughter is what he said.
well, yeah,
you know,
you got exactly what I was going to hit on. I think at the very start of the series, like you mentioned in sort of chapter 1, chapter 2, Akane kind of goes on this quest to be a Rakugoa because, like, almost as a sort of vengeance story for her dad. I think she does actually kind of love it herself because of her dad, but she is also kind of she's mad, and she harbors some emotions around her, people not letting her dad continue doing a thing that he did love. As you've seen, he obviously loved his family more and looked out for them and moved past it. But the story does kind of start as like a, revenge story, quote unquote. And I think that eventually we will get to a point either in this arc, I think probably in this arc, but maybe later, where Akane and her dad will have to have a talk, or a discussion or something about, make sure you're doing this for you. Like, don't do this just to get revenge for me. I moved on. I'm okay. Make sure you're doing it for you. And I do think Akane is doing it for her. I do think she loves Rakugo, but I think that's a thing that is probably coming. Maybe just for the dad to understand, like, know that his daughter is not just out to prove people wrong because they wronged my dad or whatever. So.
And I think this is interesting because you're 100% right. I see that conversation happening. And I think Akane got like a similar talk from her friend who went to karaoke with her, who said, you're overthinking it. If you start questioning your own style, you kind of forget what it is in the first place, is what her friend told her. This is what the dad said in not so many words to this Rakugo master, supposed to give the rec, is, hey, you're also kind of over because he was struggling between following his master's orders or valuing the integrity of the art itself.
Yeah. Or, and they both kind of have the same problem, right? Of they are dwelling in the past and not moving forward. Akane is dwelling on sort of her practice and her experience with Rakugo instead of moving forward like she was told to do and developing her own style, which is what the people around her want her to do. And this old guy is dwelling on the past where he thinks it's his fault that this great Rakugo got kicked out, instead of moving forward and saying, well, who else can I find? Who else can I lift up? Which he hasn't been doing. They talked in the last couple of chapters about how hard it is to get a recommendation from him the past couple of years. So
he's also overthinking, like, do I follow my master's orders that those are absolute, or do I value my principles on valuing artistic integrity and giving everyone a shot? And the answer that the dad just gave him is, it's just Rakugo. Just hold your head up high and keep walking forward, kind of a thing. And I think that's all to say, hey, if you're worrying about the politics and like what happened to me and the drama, it's like stop doing all that. Just go be a Rakugoka, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's such a good chapter. Yeah.
And all of this also speaks to kind of lines up with a larger theme that we've seen peeking through a lot of different times in Akane, which is sort of this idea of the old masters and the old way and seniority, and is Rakugo this ancient art which should be untouched, or is it or is there sort of a new wave, a new form, a new way to do it, right? It's kind of this looking forward versus looking back, which is what all of these things are about. I think that's what Akane in Akane the series in relation to Rakugo is about, where it's like,
is it Rakugoka or Rakugoa?
Is it Rakugoka? Rakugoka?
Now I'm
I don't
questioning
know.
if I got it wrong. I don't know.
It might be Rakugoka. Now I might have said it wrong.
I have no idea.
Rakugoka. Okay, what is Rakugo? Okay. I said it wrong. Whatever.
Sounds like a volcano.
Yeah, but anyways, all of Akane is essentially, I think, these authors trying to say, like, yes, it's this old art style, but there's a new way to do it. I think that's essentially what the series is about, right? Like developing new Rakugo, I think is what the series is about, and a new style of Rakugo and a new style of art. And I think we're going to see with Akane's performance, whether we see it or not in this, that she's able to do something new by using the sort of modern language. And I think that's reflected. We saw, I guess, in the chapter where she goes to karaoke, like you were talking about, where she talks to her friends. They were like, oh yeah, when you put on that performance about your like dad to the teacher or whatever it was,
You
they were
fake
like,
cried, yeah.
Yeah, and the fake crying, they were like, that's like, you just told that story in like modern language, but you were like being a Rakugoka when you did that. And like doing Rakugo. And that is kind of her realization of like, oh yeah, like it's a performance art, but you don't have to use the words written by the masters. You can use your own words. And that's the whole series is about that, in my opinion. The whole series is about not necessarily leaving the old behind and moving on to the new, but like, accepting and embracing what is old and developing a new version of it. Very much that's what I think the whole series is about.
Agreed. Both can coexist. There's always like the old ways are great and should be respected and remembered, but there's room for the new. And that is, you're right.
Yeah,
that's exactly what the series is about.
Well, and sometimes like we saw a couple of arcs ago, the old is the new, right? With the guy who found the old story that hadn't been performed or was not part of the sort of official Rakugo portfolio. He like found an old story and brought it out, and it was new, right? Which is like a cool blending of the two, old and new, which I think is maybe where we'll get eventually with Akane. It's kind of yet to be seen if where the hammer will fall, if it's, do new things are great, or if it's blend the two. I think it'll be one of those.
I think it'll be that a blend of the two, and there is room for both. Kind of Sure. I actually, let's keep going. There's something I want to mention about a previous chapter, but I'll get to that.
Yeah. So yeah.
I love this. I guess this is your role is a great line where his role is really he guides the people around him. As we saw in like the last like few chapters, like where with the glasses kid, right? He gave him like, you have to be more confident, put your hair back up. Yep. Like put your hair up, take off the glasses. We've seen him in the past with the other people that Akane is in the little school with, like being a leader, being a guider, which is why people missed him a bunch. But yeah. I think he's just a very supportive guy. And I think that's why like he's so beloved, even though he didn't quote unquote make it. And he's probably not as talented as a Rakugoka as any of the people in the room he's in.
Yeah, but, well, I was gonna ask, do you think with kind of the evidence maybe isn't right, do you think with the kind of historical flashback stuff we've gotten with Akane's dad that maybe you're catching on that like he was an okay Rakugoka, but he was like a really supportive, good person, and so everyone loved him, even though maybe his performance wasn't the best, and so when he was let go, they were like
100%, that's it.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll learn that. I think it might be possible that he was also like just an awesome, outstanding Rakugoka, but maybe he was stuck in the old ways or something like that. But I'm kind of getting the idea that maybe he was just okay.
I think you're right in that. Well, so I think he is very, very good, but I think compared to the people he's surrounded by right now, he is just okay. Yeah. In the major leagues, he's not good.
Yeah, like a top minor league star.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that doesn't matter because he was beloved by everyone around.
Yeah, because he was this sort of helpful, supportive, knowledgeable guy who was around, and so everyone's like, "Oh, we love this guy." But then, it'll be interesting to see if we get more information on that or not. Because I kind of feel like Akane is already maybe not surpassing him, but she's like at the same level.
She's a genius. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think she's like, how old is she now? Like 19 in this, 19 or 20?
I think she's like 17, 18.
No, because she graduated. Right? She was 17 at the start of the series, and we got like a year time skip. So maybe she's 18 or 19. I don't know. Anyways, no, I agree. She is definitely like the youngest. Like she's going to do all these different things. She's like basically already at her dad's level or more, I would say. So
I think he this is like an industry where you have to perform. So egos, the industry is full of egos, and Akane's dad has no ego. He's selfless. He's humble. He's a little meek at the start. It doesn't seem that way anymore, but I think he is that's exactly it, right? He's very supportive. He checks his ego in an industry where nobody checks their ego. And yeah, I think that's what's wholly unique about him, and why everyone loves him. Either way, it's good to see. It's good to see his like positive attributes in the limelight. And this was a very sweet moment where he complimented Akane's kimono and like instantly fixed her mental state of like of nerves. Yeah, it was really really a good chapter, and it made me tear up when the two of them, not him and Akane, but him and the other master were talking. It was really heartfelt and good.
Yeah, and it's a really like again, like this is in a magazine aimed at 14-year-old boys. We talk about that a lot, Weekly Shonen Jump. And this is like probably the most mature writing I've ever seen come out of Weekly Shonen Jump. Like I don't think I've ever seen anything that's about two adult men talking about, one of them kind of losing their job and moving on and raising a family, and the other one feeling guilty about it and being told to move on. It's like, that's like real adult shit. And that doesn't happen in Weekly Shonen Jump very often, if ever at all.
I agree. And, I think a surprise character that I didn't expect to like as much as I do is Chocho. I think he is like so phenomenal. In that he's very loyal to his friends, but when I think this was like 2 chapters ago, maybe 1 chapter ago, is he's talking to Akane's master Shiguma, and they're having whiskey, and he mentions he kind of checks Shiguma, even though they're friends. He like shoulder checks him verbally by saying, I don't know the exact circumstances behind the expulsion, but I know you couldn't protect him. So, but I have power now. So I'll be protecting his daughter. That's for sure, And of course, Shiguma was like, "You don't need to tell me that. If something happens, I'm gonna throw up my dukes."
Yeah, he's literally like, I will fucking fight for this girl. She's like amazing, the best, clearly.
And like his mother like left her in his care too. So it's like even more than that. It's like a perfect double whammy of why everyone is incredibly protective over Akane. And surprisingly, it has like only half of it has to do with her talent. The rest of it has to do with kind of just how cool her family is.
Yeah. Well, and also like we talked about earlier, a lot of these people, like this expulsion was like this big thing that a lot of people feel guilty for not preventing or not supporting the people who got kicked out, or not doing more beforehand, and maybe not training these people better so that they didn't get expelled. It's like, it's weird that like this is like a series that's, well, it's weird that there's like so much like old man guilt in the story for 14-year-old boys, right? In Weekly Shonen Jump, there's just like a lot of that. So
that's because they're driving a boat, like they're the captain of the Titanic that has a big hole in it, right? It's taking in water, and they're trying to course correct. Like Rakugo's a dying industry, so they're desperate. And I liked, so this guy's master said it's his fault that everyone was expelled, and that Chocho made huge waves, but he didn't, and he's the only one to get promoted of the group his age. And that's the reason his group got expelled, is because they are old form Rakugoka. They aren't keeping up with modern trends. They're great at what they do, but they're the same as the old fogies that came before them, and they aren't innovating, and the industry was already dying. So that is not the lifeblood Rakugo needed to continue forward. At least that's what was loosely stated in that Afro guy blaming him.
Yeah,
and
for sure. I also think, talking about all this sort of like theme and what's going on in old versus new Rakugo, this could even be taken potentially, stay with me, as these authors as a sort of massive criticism towards Japanese culture in general, right? Japanese culture is very conservative, and I mean that in a sense that they are against change. They are stuck in old ways. I mean, they still use fax machines in businesses. Everybody wears a suit over there if you do any kind of business work, whereas, in America, where we're from, we're more progressive on the business side, right? Like work from home, you dress however you want if you're working, tech or whatever. And I think that Akane is at least partially based in these authors' ideas that Japanese culture in general is conservative, and we need to sort of wake up, embrace the younger generation, and think of some new ideas and embrace new ideas and leave the kind of old conservative culture behind. I think I can't say that 100% accurately, but I do feel kind of under the surface those kinds of ideas being related to the Rakugo they're writing about, with the old guard trying to hold on to everything and not letting the new people in and kicking the new people out, right? Saying, well, here's a bunch of Rakugo with new ideas, kick them out or whatever. So I don't know.
I think you're completely right, but I understand why you're erring on the side of caution, because we are not Japanese. We don't know.
We're not Japanese, and we also weren't at the end of the story, so it's hard to say what the author is trying to say before they have completely resolved their story, right? Maybe you get to the end and they go, because there's definitely an ending of this where the old and the new blend, and we need both of them. But there's also an ending of the story I see where the old is we need to move past the old stuff and move on to the new stuff. I think both.
I don't see that happening, because I don't think that's a good message. I think that would be like a bad message to send. So I hope that's not it.
But that's an opinion that an author might have about an art form, right? I
don't think that's, because we just got a chapter with like the guy who researched this very old story for Rakugo.
For sure.
So
I think relating to Rakugo specifically, I do think that there's more respect towards the old, but we'll see.
But I think you're on point though in regards to like a statement on just media and how we enjoy things. Like, we have to kind of open our mind to new stuff, and as we get older, we kind of get set in our ways and in what is good and what is not good. And something that is completely new and fresh, maybe unrelatable to us in the beginning, but that doesn't make it bad. It seems kind of like what the theme this author is going for. I like it. It's very good so far. Akane just doesn't drop the ball.
It's easily the most well written thing like every single week in Weekly Shonen Jump for me.
It just slaps, man. And I think an issue I have with the Weekly Shonen Jump is that we have hitters like Akane and One Piece, and I know this is not WSJ, but Dan, and it really puts a lot of pressure on every new release I see, because these slapped right from the start, and like anytime I see a new series, I'm like, oh, that's pretty good.
Well, and also, I mean, I will briefly mention this because this is a potentially hour-long episode we could do all by itself, but there's so much entertainment nowadays, in addition to all entertainment produced in the past, that is now available for streaming, for reading, right? Viz Manga has all of this old manga you can read. Anime is now available to stream. So many things are vying for your attention. There's YouTube, there's TikTok, there's Twitter, so many things are vying for your attention that if you can't start strong and keep me interested from the start, even if the series is okay, like you said, that's actually a huge detriment, because if it's not good enough to win my attention over all these other things, then it's not worth it. Which, and I agree with you. Akane from the start has been absolutely like massively good from chapter 1 and super good on. So
but like the theme of the story, we are always willing to give new things a shot.
It's what always read the chapter 1s.
True. And I would love to see something as good as Akane or Sakamoto or anything like that. In the new releases coming up. But anyway,
we'll see. We get one. I think this Sunday we get a new release. So maybe it's the week after. I don't know. But no, I think it's this Sunday. But we'll see. I had one last quick question.
Sure.
Are you familiar with? I guess it's NPR Public Radio does this. They have a sort of storytelling live mic show called the Moth Radio Hour. Have you ever heard this show before?
I have not. What's it about?
Okay. The Moth Radio Hour is not about anything. What the Moth Radio Hour is they will go to a city or a town and they'll say, I think they take submissions of people just kind of like telling their life story or doing like telling a story, doing kind of a, it's usually, I would say, like autobiographical. It's not really dramatized. It's essentially like stand-up comedy, right? You're getting up and telling a story, but it isn't always comedy, right? Sometimes it's serious. It's people who've been through like breakups or loss of loved ones, and they're there to just kind of get up and tell their story, and maybe it ends with a lesson. I bring this up because the way, if any of you are having a trouble sort of understanding what makes Rakugo kind of both important and entertaining, as I know that I was before I had watched, I watched one of the Rakugo anime a couple of years ago.
I think it's just called Rakugo. The anime? The 12 episode one that's like an hour each?
It's called like Shingo Rakugo or something like that. But
okay.
But anyways, yeah, it's a bunch of old guys with lots of relationship stuff. But anyways, if you just go and listen to like the Moth Radio Hour, that is what I would kind of consider American Rakugo, if you wanted to classify it as like that, right? It is someone getting up and telling a story. The story almost always kind of has it's either trying to teach you something or it has a point at the end. And while it isn't sort of based in a historical text, the way that Rakugo is, that is the kind of like performance art that to me feels like a similar type of thing, right? On stage, in front of a mic, telling a story as a performance. Storytelling as a performance art is, you don't see it a whole lot, but it is a thing. Moth Radio Hour is something that I always love to listen to. So especially when I listen to more NPR in the car.
It's funny saying that because I any older audience that we have are like rolling in their graves right now because radio like radio shows existed forever and then they stopped. And like, I don't know about you, they didn't exist when I was growing up. Like
they did, I mean, I
didn't listen to them, Yeah.
I mean, I grew up listening to stuff like The Moth, stuff like, oh gosh, it's called like From Here now, which is, there used to be like a Sunday show where they would travel around and it would be like country performances. And again, some of this like performative storytelling. I also remember my dad had a 4 or 5 CD set of just this like story of Paul Bunyan. No, I like, it's just a recorded guy just like doing like storytelling art, like vocal storytelling art, which is, you're right. It's like not really a thing anymore. Like we have audiobooks, that's a little different, right? Cause that's a written thing, transposed, but this auditory storytelling art, you're right. This was a thing. I mean, stuff like, oh God, what's the like invasion thing from the 1920s or 30s or whatever it was, the radio show.
I'm not sure about the specific, like
Tom Cruise is in the movie War of the Worlds, right?
Oh yeah.
War of the Worlds is kind of a form of Rakugo, right? Like it's storytelling vocal performance as an art. Now that was broadcast over the radio, but Rakugo also is like got really popular when the radio rose in Japan post-war. So anyways, a little sidetrack artistic thing on
I'm sure you've
American
heard
Rakugo.
A hard-boiled detective radio show.
Yeah, exactly.
That's always parodied in television nowadays.
Radio dramas. I mean, there was a Star Wars radio drama that came out. You can probably go listen to that.
Anyway, we're tangenting here. Let's get out of Rakugo.
Yeah, let's go to news real quick. Couple of big things, couple of sales things came out for our newcomers from last year. Mama Yu Yu and Kagurabachi both got reprints of, I put chapter 1, but volume 1. Volume 1 of those mangas selling about as well as Cypher Academy did. And I think that means that they probably survived the first wave of cuts. Mama Yu Yu is in a little bit more, I think, of a precarious position, but a reprint is a good thing to get. I think generally they print about 15K, maybe 20K. And so if you sell more than that, you get a reprint, it gets refilled. Even just the news of getting a reprint sometimes is enough to be like, oh, this is selling enough to get a reprint. I should check it out. So
good for them. I think they both deserve it.
Yeah, I think Kagurabachi is definitely good. It's funny. With this latest chapter, Kagurabachi is actually just Batman. It's Magic Batman with a sword, and he kills people. But like, just like get in the comments and tell me if you agree. I saw people finally start talking to this. Kagurabachi is just Batman.
Okay, you're a way bigger Batman fan than me, so I trust you for this. But I find that the Batman comparison always falls apart after people say, "But they kill people," because it's such a core part, you know.
Well, I think it's basing that relation on the character being sort of like Doesn't say a
vigilante.
lot. Well, doesn't say a lot. Kind of vigilante justice, out for vengeance, kind of dark brooding main character. Those are
Fair
the
enough.
kinds of things that people are like, oh, it's like Batman.
Oh, it is. Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah,
That
that's
is sort
fair.
of the comparison I'm making there. But yeah, New Age Exorcist is still the best selling thing from last year. Unfortunately,
Ugh.
I guess I need to go back and read it. I mean, I read, I think, 3 chapters and just thought it was not even that it was like, oh, it's kind of boring, I'll drop it. Like, I thought it was outright bad. So,
I thought it was awful. Fuck.
yeah, just awful. We should probably go back and read it, but
Yeah,
check it
yeah.
out. We'll have to
Before
see if it's
continuing
any
shit on
good.
it.
I don't think I'm going to like it, but we'll go back and get it. One more thing on Kagurabachi, because this is interesting. So Weekly Shonen Jump will release voice comics. I'm going to say the
What?
word vomics out loud. I hate it. I think I still
Makes
don't like
me
that
want to
word.
vomit.
I wrote blag in my notes about the word vomics. But historically, I mean, these have come out for One Piece in the past, Sakamoto Days, a lot of the new stuff the last 2 or 3 years, voice comics, vomics, have been a thing that WSJ uses for advertising, for brand recognition and stuff. Essentially, all this is they will do a sort of, they'll cut up the panels of a chapter. They're kind of edited together along with voiceover and music and sound effects and things like that, just to make it more kind of dynamic if you enjoy watching that. But for the first time in the West, we got a voice comic from WSJ, which has in the pictures the actual English translation. Now, the voiceover is still in Japanese, but the pictures
cool.
are from the English one. So this is the first time this has happened. Generally, even if there were subtitles, which there always were subtitles available for most of these, it was, Japanese panels, Japanese voiceover. And for Kagurabachi chapter, I think we got chapter 1, 2, and 3, or maybe they combined some of them. I know there's 3 episodes of this right now. We got Kagurabachi with the English images edited together with the Japanese voices and subtitles. So
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is a new thing. I'm really hoping that maybe they lean into this a little more. I do think that those voice comics are pretty cool. Again, that's sort of a performance storytelling art, tying it back. But yeah,
what's interesting to me about this? I don't really care about the voice comic thing at all, but I think what's interesting is that 1, it shows that Jump believes in Kagurabachi, and 2, that Kagurabachi is popular in the West.
I actually, yeah, that's a good thing to bring up that I think I might have missed. Yeah, I do think that because of the memes, or maybe because if it's similar to Batman or just the type of story it is, I do think the West is a pretty big defender and reader of Kagurabachi. It's been very high on the Manga Plus app that I've seen, like top 10 consistently since it came out, I think. So doing really well. Yeah, I wonder if this is Kagurabachi specific, or if more, if it will happen for One Piece or for some other stuff happening in the future. But hopefully it's a trend.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Cool. Little anime side piece of news. The Funimation app is dead. Crunchyroll acquired Funimation sometime last year, maybe 2 years ago. That finalized, and from that, the prices for the Crunchyroll app are going up by a lot. I saw.
Oh, okay. So they have a monopoly, and now they're like,
this
okay.
is essentially, yes. This is. I think there's still High Dive and maybe one other, but yeah, Crunchyroll is incredibly close to being essentially a Western anime watching monopoly. Yeah, I think the prices that I saw were, I think it was normally $58 a year for English subscription. That is going up to $99. I saw that the Canadian price is going up even more, right? The Canadian price went from like 58 US to like 126 Canadian. Now maybe that conversion comes out to the same. I don't know, but this is like exactly what people didn't, why monopolies are bad, why they don't want this to happen. One person controls all the content. You can charge whatever you want because you have to go to Crunchyroll to watch anime.
Yep.
So this is bad. We hate this. Get in the comments. We do not.
I think you see pirating on the rise after this, because
yeah, for sure. I think this is a. We talked a lot about piracy in our episode, I guess 2 weeks ago, maybe. You check that one out. Definitely, I think this is a sign of the times. This is more of a sign of, all of the streaming services have raised their prices in the last, I would say, 18 months. HBO Max raised their prices. Netflix raised their prices again last year. I think Hulu, Disney Plus, I think those all raised their prices, I think last year, but at least in the last 18 months. So the price increase isn't necessarily unique to Crunchyroll, but their ownership over the market of anime is pretty big.
And it's a huge hike. I think this is the most expensive streaming service. Actually, I don't know how much HBO
Netflix costs a fuck ton.
It costs more than this?
If you want to watch it above, like for instance, I don't want to watch stuff at 480 or 720p. Like it's fucking 2024. I want to watch stuff at 1080 or higher. If you want to watch stuff at 1080p or higher on Netflix, I think it's like $26.99 a month.
Oh my God.
It's crazy.
Okay.
I can verify those numbers, but yeah.
We'll move on because I have something to say and it's just going to turn into a tangent about ISPs. So let's go on to the next thing.
We talked about the streaming and the pirating stuff with manga, and it's a lot of the same issues with to have a good service. It's a service problem. We can move on. Speaking of piracy, the big news in manga here, we're getting to at the end of the episode, is that in Japan, I believe 3 suspects, the NHK, which is the main news service in Japan, reports three foreigners have been arrested for violating the copyright law by posting images of Weekly Shonen Jump series online. Multiple Twitter users kind of related to this went offline or announced that they would be changing or disbanding. What we are essentially talking about here, to be a little bit more specific, is 3 foreigners in Japan who were the responsible parties for distributing the whole magazine, but specifically, I think this is My Hero Academia, Jujutsu Kaisen, and One Piece were the big sort of leak things, the things that were driving a lot of leak traffic, I guess you would say. And especially One Piece and Jujutsu Kaisen, those are the big ones. Those guys have been arrested. And in the wake of that, a lot of these Western translation / pirate publication groups have essentially said, like, okay, well, those are our guys and they got them and we're not going to risk them, coming over here for us or getting a lawsuit or whatever. So we're done. We're out. We're going dark. That happened. There is one that is left. If you are familiar with the groups that did translations of My Hero Academia, Jujutsu Kaisen, and One Piece, you'll probably know who that is. If you're on Twitter during all this, you'll probably still know who that is. I will be interested to see how this goes. This also comes a couple of weeks after, again, like we were talking about piracy. The Korean people, what was it? The Korean publisher coming down on Manga Dex, which is the biggest site that everyone knows about, but and a lot of piracy coming up. This is all kind of related, I think, to even
it's Tachiomi, right?
That's what it was. Yeah, not Manga Dex. The Tachiomi. Well, the Manga Dex on Tachiomi. The app is now gone. Yeah, lots of stuff. But anyways, this is all sort of related to the streaming stuff, the Netflix stuff. People are kind of cracking down on what's theirs because the market is not growing anymore. That's kind of my guess, but
I would believe it.
Yeah.
COVID ended. So a lot of these markets that were kind of artificially boosted, I think they really got a lot of money from COVID, and I think a lot of people stuck around, but I don't think it's growing at that insane a rate as it was before. And I also think One Piece is so mainstream now, and it didn't used to be, right? It used to be huge in Japan only. Now it's mainstream
in places like Japan, South America, France. Yeah, it was the US was never a huge One Piece consumer. It's on the rise year over year for sure.
Yeah, but now it's blowing up everywhere, and I think this is probably the worst time to pirate or like send illegal scans on that property specifically. Same with JJK, same with My Hero. They're ultra protective over it. And plus we have an alternative that comes out on Sundays.
This is not, as someone who has read not all of these series, but some of these series early, just because, I pay my money to the Viz, whatever app to read manga, and if it comes out early, I'm still supporting the series by paying for that. But yeah, I'm not super upset that, oh no, now I have to read One Piece, and instead of Thursday or Friday, I have to read it on Sunday with everybody else. I do also think here's something good about this is that historically, for stuff like Jujutsu Kaisen, My Hero Academia, One Piece, what would happen is the people who are sort of, I don't want to say more tech savvy, people who are more internet minded that knew where to go and read these pirate sites, the chapter would come out early, and all those people would go and have their discussions of it on Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday, whenever it came out. They would all go and have all their discussions and theories. And then on Sunday, everybody else would see it, and they would have a sort of a smaller or an equal size, or maybe a little bit larger. But you kind of split those two groups up. What I hope happens is that we lose these. I think that if we lose these scanlators, these translators, these guys who are doing it for these series specifically, I think this is only a good thing. And we discussed manga piracy again a couple of weeks ago, and I do think that there is still room for fan translations and things in.
Oh, there's plenty of room for it.
But when you have an official English translation, and that official English translation is good, I'll put a little star here because I know that a lot of people don't like the Jujutsu Kaisen English translation that's official. And by don't like, I mean that they have a lot of problems with that one. So that might be an issue. But for One Piece and stuff, you have like Stephen Paul translates One Piece. I've talked about him in the past. He's like easily the best, in my opinion, the best translator I've ever read. Everything
I would just
he does
love it
if
he changed that L to an R and everything will be good in the world. Just call him Zoro.
Oh, Zoro? Yeah. I think that is mandated by, I believe that is mandated by Viz or by Shueisha or somebody, because there's
boo those people right now. Yeah. I will, but like we're talking about, it's a service problem, and when there is no service problem, there don't need to be illegal scans. I'm a huge
and Viz and
proponent of
Shueisha
scanlators. I'm a huge proponent of scanlators.
Manga Plus are good sites that read well, that publish on time with good translations, good image quality. They're good, and they're worth it, and they're free, right? If you want to read modern stuff, they're free. So
I'm a huge proponent of scanlators. I think they absolutely should exist. They're just a net benefit for manga everywhere. I don't think the industry would have gotten anywhere without them.
No, not in the West, for sure.
Not in the West, not here. So I absolutely do think they should exist, but I do think that the Manga Plus app is what we and scanlators want, and I think these sites that release the Manga Plus stuff early are simply doing it for the profit. And
most of them, I would say.
Don't get me wrong, I read them early too. I'm no better.
If you've ever lined up the timing of sometimes when we talk about One Piece, and it might come out the day before One Piece actually airs. I don't know. That has happened in the past. We have done that. So.
And I'm just saying it doesn't matter if they're going away. Hopefully those guys aren't in too much trouble though. But that was the last thing I want to talk about. But was do you think so? Like, for comparison, they arrested a guy for I think he was ripping ROMs or ISOs from like Wii games, and he got like 10 years in prison in Japan. So I'm guessing these guys are getting similar, if not larger sentences. I mean, to compare, right? If you had a New York Times bestseller book, let's say you worked for like, I'll just name one that I know, right? Tor is a publisher that publishes a lot of sci-fi fantasy that I read. If you had somebody who worked for Tor or knew Tor, new stuff that was coming out, and 4 days early, every book that they published they stole and published a digital version online. Even the American justice system would come down hard on those guys. I mean, that's a huge thing. So I think these guys are and especially if they're foreigners, they're either going to get extradited, you fly to America now or fly back to wherever you're from. Honestly,
I actually don't think they're American, but
hopefully for their sakes, it's probably better for them to get extradited.
For sure, it probably is.
In
but
Japan.
But I mean, I'm not sure. I actually don't think they're American. I'm not sure where they're from. It just said foreigners, so who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Either way, we'll see what happens here. From a consumer perspective, you're going to be fine.
Yeah, I hope that those discussions get consolidated, because I think having one big, large discussion about One Piece or Jujutsu Kaisen is actually a lot more fun than having it sort of spoilers on Wednesday and then talk about it for 2 or 3 days, and then now here's the official one and all of the other people can read it. And I don't really like that, but we'll see.
The nature of internet discourse also means that more and more people will start reading it early, because you'll see these takes about the chapters getting posted on Twitter, spoiling it for the people who read it on Sunday, and they'll be like, oh, I can read it here. And then
as soon as spoilers drop, everyone goes, Yeah, I mean, definitely. As soon as spoilers drop, people go, "Well, shit, I'm going to get spoiled on the rest of the chapter if I don't immediately go and read it." And they go and try and read it. So, yeah, good point. Cool. Let's talk about what else you've been doing this week. One more thing, Gautam, what have you been doing?
Same shit as last week, brother. Playing Persona 3.
Still good?
It's great. It's still very good. Still very good. I like it a lot. I think this is very much an archetype game that it showcases why Persona is great, but it has some rough edges that just come from it being an older game.
Cool.
But yeah, nothing new to say on it. What about you?
Actually, same thing last week. I am still reading Magilumiere Company Limited. What
a beautiful cover. I love every single one.
Yeah, it's so colorful. It's so awesome. It's so weird to talk about this series because this is, you want to say like, oh, it's a magical girl series, but like, no, this is a series about like corporate espionage and like startup, like it's like companies. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like companies at war in competition, and like startups versus big companies and companies versus the government. Like, this is not actually like, are there magical girls in this? Yes. Do they fight creatures? Yes. Is that what this is about? No. This is literally like a corporate espionage story. And that's why I like it so much, is that it's so cool and different. Yeah. Like
I'd like to think this is how like HoloLive or any VTuber company works.
Oh God, don't get me into VTubers this week.
True. There's drama this week.
Yep. Go watch Doki Bird. Everybody else say that. But yeah, I mean, it's still really cool. It's really good. There was a time skip. This is the lead. This is the character with twin tails from the last picture you may have seen last week. She cut her hair because there's a time skip. Very cool. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm still really enjoying it. I'm almost caught up. I think I've got about 15, maybe 20 chapters left, and I'll be at chapter 101, which is the last chapter posted. But yeah, I mean, really, really liking this a lot. Really good art, really great characters, really interesting drama about all this like company stuff. Also, as someone who has worked in tech at various levels, the sort of office culture of going from like a startup, which is what Magilumiere is, to like the big corporations and how they operate, or the medium-sized ones, and like, oh, we can't respond to this, magic event because it's not going to make a profit for us. All of this stuff like that. Like, that's like what the story is. It's all this like, and like, again, like as someone who's worked in tech, it's very like, oh yeah, that's how companies work. They're right. It strikes me very much.
Do you think the author has worked in a corporate job?
If they haven't, they are like married to someone who has, or their whole family has, or something. Because I can't imagine that they haven't worked in some kind of corporate culture, because they just like understand it at a level that feels, it feels firsthand, right? It feels like they had to have experienced some of it for how appropriate it is. But anyways, I am massively enjoying Magilumiere Co. Limited. Very excited to catch up on that. Cannot recommend it enough. Didn't think I was going to like it as much as I did. And honestly, it just keeps getting better. Like, every arc I read is like, wow, okay, this is more interesting than the last arc, and there's more cool stuff going on behind the scenes.
I love just a really neat series. But like, the cover alone is like, every time I see one of these covers, I'm like, whoa, it's so pretty.
So colorful. Yeah, the art is really good. I really like this artist.
It looks great.
Yeah, really great. I think that's it, unless there's anything else you wanted to go over, Gautam.
No, sirree. Let's wrap.
Let's get out of here. Cool. Hey, thanks again to everyone for listening or watching. And don't forget to leave us feedback, comments, upvote, thumbs up, whatever possible positive reinforcement you can do. Go do that, please. Check out Twitter and Patreon, which are linked in the description below. And I think that's it. Tell everybody goodbye, Gautam.
See you later, everyone.
Thanks again for being with us. And don't forget to come back next week. And also don't forget to read more manga.